Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today's webinar is in collaboration with Microsoft and Redington. We will be discussing when cloud meets security with Microsoft 365 E5. Before I hand it over to Arshana, I would like to brief you on our speakers. Our speakers for today are Vince Niamatullah, our Cloud and Technical Manager, Emilio Shaheen, our Technical Support Specialist, and Ziad Yashouri, our Security Business Development Specialist. We want this webinar to be interactive, so please share with us your emails because we will be sending you some sample emails with labels and protection published to it. I'd also like to mention that at the end of the webinar, the recording will be shared with you. So just to make sure you receive the email, please make sure to share with us your email address in the chat, and I'll make sure you receive it. Okay, thank you. Arshana, would you like to begin?
Sure, Gida, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for making the time and joining us today. I noticed that we have a mixed audience of attendees today, some of our existing customers, some new faces, and some of you who have been attending few of our sessions. So a warm welcome to all of you today. As most of you already know, I am Archana Matthews. I am the Business Development Manager handling UAE. Just to give you a small introduction on Exquitech and what we do, we are Microsoft Gold partners. We have been awarded as Meta Cloud Partner of the Year for the last 5 consecutive years, which makes our focus market Middle East, Turkey, Africa, which wholly sums up as the Meta region. Okay. Our primary focus is only on Microsoft Cloud products, and this is the only thing that we focus or as a company we do. The 2 main products that we focus on is Microsoft Modern Workplace, which is Office 365, and building on top of Office 365 and SharePoint, building on top, automating business processes using Power Apps. And we also provide data analytics and reporting with the use of Power BI. With regards to Azure, we have a team dedicated to help you on on-prem environment customers to moving to the cloud seamlessly, providing you with advisory and consulting services for deployment structures. Providing admin or user training on both of these products is something that we already specialize on. The reason today we are here is to basically understand Microsoft Enterprise E5 as a product. Now, what does Microsoft 365 E5 really help, or how is it a better product for you? The product itself is built for businesses to basically defend you against cyber threats and simplify IT management with a simple solution. So most of the headlines or news that you see online is usually talking about cyber threats or cyber attacks about big or well-known businesses. Yet the SMB or the small and medium business size organizations are usually the most targeted or the most vulnerable companies according to what statistics state. So SMBs being a target for cyber attacks, because of which it has been viewed mainly because there has been minimal defenses or according to the modern day threats. So, and just an antivirus solution is not really, is possibly incapable of addressing the security risks that today's businesses face. So what we are going to focus and rather show you today is how we can bring together the best in-class productivity of Office 365, along with the advanced security of device management capabilities to help safeguard your business, which is the #1 priority today. I'm sure you'd all agree. Before I hand it over to Ziad, I would like to just let you know that we've split this webinar on two different webinars. So we will be tackling a part of the Microsoft Enterprise E5 security features today, And we will be having another one in a couple of weeks, which is going to be covering the remaining capabilities. So just make sure you register and attend the second part as well. And Gida is going to be definitely sharing the invites with all of you, so you can make sure that you don't miss it. So Ziad, this is over to you now.
Thank you, Arshana, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining today's webinar. My name is Ziad. I'm a Security Business Development Specialist here at Expiration. I'm really excited for today's session as we will be diving into an area that Microsoft has been heavily investing in for the past few years and fully matured at, that is security. As you're probably familiar with, there are no longer boundaries to where our corporate data rely. Data is simply residing everywhere these days, and by everywhere, we don't specifically mean just different corporate-owned storage or devices and locations, but also include personal storage drives. So while this could definitely be a big concern and issue for any corporate, it no longer is the case with Microsoft's latest Enterprise E5 offering. The E5 is a single suite that unifies enterprise security with user productivity in mind to meet the needs of today's modern workspace. Now, it's important to find a balance between powerful, complicated security capabilities and the security posture that you can maintain over time with your current staff and budget. So let's explore how Microsoft can secure your organization. An organization's most valuable asset is its data. Data protection requires a layered approach that starts with the dynamic great user authentication experience. Then, threat protection tools keep users, data, devices, and applications safe. And security insights recommend ways to optimize the configuration for a stronger security posture. Microsoft provides holistic security that is aligned to these four pillars of security. That is, identity and access management, information protection, threat protection, and security management. Of course, regardless of where your users or data are. So Microsoft Suites offer an end-to-end security, granting our customers an advantage in creating a comprehensive, adaptive security program like no other. Now, it's important to note that Microsoft E5 offers an advanced set of security capabilities not found in any other plan from Microsoft, neither in the E3, such as controlling access to sensitive data, even when it's shared outside of your organization or accessed via a third-party application. Some other features in the E5 are such as discovering shadow IT, so it can be secured and managed, and of course, much more than that, which we will be diving deep into throughout the demo. Now, one of the features that we will be exploring together in our demo today is information protection, which is all about protecting sensitive information whenever it lives or travels by applying labels and policies. We will also be touching bases with the threat protection that offers a combination of traditional approaches such as anti-malware, plus new innovations such as the user and entity behavior analytics and endpoint detection and response capabilities. On top of the threat protection capabilities, we will have a dive on some of the security management features you'd benefit from, such as forensic reporting, threat and vulnerability management, and recommendation to take actions in order to strengthen your security posture. Here, we can see E5's unique features in a simplified view. As discussed initially, we will be focusing on 3 security features in our demo in a few, and tackling the remaining features on our next webinar in April. So make sure to register for our next webinar in April in case you didn't. All right. So now we will move to the demo. I will be delivering a demo on the Azure Information Protection and Cloud App Security, and then we will be moving with my colleague Emilio to discover the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint capabilities. Okay. Can someone please confirm if you're able to see my screen?
Not yet.
No, not yet.
Let me give it another go.
We can see it now.
Yeah, we can see it now.
Ziad, you are on mute if you're speaking. Ziad, you are on mute.
Okay, I thought I unmuted myself, so sorry for that. Vince, you can hear me now, right?
Yes, thank you.
All right, perfect. So I was saying that as we will be exploring the features of Azure Information Protection, my colleague will be sending out a sample email with a sensitivity label applied so that you can get the chance to explore the feel of a protected email. So please, in case you didn't share your email with us yet, now is your chance to share your email so that we can include you in this POC that we will be delivering. Now, let's talk all about information protection. Information protection with Microsoft starts by creating a label, which allow your users to add a protection layer to their files, and also you as an administrator will be able to leverage on auto-labeling capabilities from F5 to enforce labels where needed based on some identifiers. And it's really very easy to create a label, and I'll show you how we can create a label by creating one with you. So what you're seeing here are some labels that we have created. And in order to create a label, we just go on, we name the label, so we will call it a demo. And then we name the label name that will show for the users in your organization. So you might want to do a label with confidential, and then you just put the description for your users. So here you might tell them that applying this label will encrypt the email. Then we define the scope for this label. And as you can see, the scope covers 3 areas: the files and emails, group and sites, Azure Peer Review assets. So covering all of the scope in your organizations. Then we would need to determine what layer of protection needs to be applied. So here I'm going to go ahead and encrypt the files and emails that will have this label attached to it. And I need to mark the content. It's really important to encrypt the files for many reasons. Encrypting the files will protect us in some cases from having someone intercepting the traffic between you and the recipient. So the case of man in the middle. And also, it will be encrypting your data at rest in order to add a security layer to it. Marking the content is visuals in order for the person accessing this data to understand if a label is applied, or maybe we can add like a watermark, which would say confidential on the background of the page. Now we need to configure the encryption settings. And as you will see, the flexibility is there. You can specify the label policy exactly to fit your needs. So you can determine whether the permission will be assigned now, or you can even grant the user the privilege to assign the permission. In this case, I will assign the permission myself. Now, besides the permissions that we will assign to the users, we can also limit the expiration of the content. That is, if I'm sharing an email today, maybe I want the recipient to only have access to the document for a week. So in this case, I would put the limit 7 days. 7 days from now, the person will no longer be able to access the content. Also, I can specify how this recipient will able to access the content. So do I want them to be able to access it when they're offline or just when they're online? I will keep it always. Then we need to assign the permissions. Assigning the permissions will grant different users different rights, okay? And when we assign the permissions, we can define the people into groups or organizations or specific users. So mainly, we can create a permission for users or groups in your organization, or I can do it for any authenticated user. I can specify a certain group, let's say finance in my corporate, if I'm doing a label specific for the finance, or even I can apply specific emails or domains. So the domain is a good permission to assign when we're working with partners and the data that we usually transact with is confidential. So in this case, I can only include the domain of my partner's domain and assign a permission. So after defining the people I want to grant the permission, I have to choose the permission that I will assign to these users. You have 4 preset permissions from Microsoft, and you can also customize your own. So co-owner, as the name indicates, it will grant the user all of the rights. Co-author is similar. The only difference is that they will not be able to choose the permissions or change the permissions. Reviewer will be able to view the content, edit, save, reply, and so on, but they cannot print, they cannot copy and extract the data. So the data protection is there, but also we're giving your user the flexibility to do some changes if needed. And the viewer is the highest restriction, where in this case, the recipient will only be able to view the document or whatever is attached in the email. You will not be able to forward it. You will not be able to copy data from there. You will not even be able to take screenshots. So my colleague will send you a sample email where, in this case, you will only be granted the viewer permissions. So try to do some copying, try to forward the email, and just experience how the information protection will block you from doing these things. All right, so let me just assign a random. Now, when it comes to the content marking, you choose what you need to write. So I might want to mark the document as confidential. I might want to add a header to an email with this label saying, warning, this email contains sensitive information. All right, and I can even add a footer if needed. Now, one of the unique features in the E5 is the auto-labeling. So what is auto-labeling for files and emails? Auto-labeling, basically, as the name indicates, is we will be indicating some set of conditions, which based on these conditions, if they match, the label will automatically be applied to that document. So here in the condition, you can, for example, choose sensitive information type. For example, I might want the label to be applied whenever there is credit card information in the document I'm working on. Okay, and also what's really nice is that you have the flexibility to choose how aggressive you want the label to be. So let's say for the finance, you don't want the label to be applied whenever we have 3 or less credit card numbers, but I want the protection to apply when we have more than 3. So then I would just say that the instance count should start from 4 and above. Also, you can choose whether this label will be automatically applied or just recommended for the user. And we can add a display message to notify the user that an auto label, let's say, has been applied. since this file contains credit card number. All right, that way the user knows what's going on. And also defining the protection and settings for group sites, we can explore the scope and extend it to privacy and external users accessing files from, let's say, SharePoint and things as such. And we can also apply conditions.
Ziad, now you are on mute. Something happened, you are on mute.
Vince, I think someone is putting me on mute, so because this isn't the
Yes.
Anyway.
Thanks.
But thank you, Vince. Did you miss out on anything, Vince? Should I go back to?
No, that's good. Good.
All right, perfect. So this is how you create a label. It's very straightforward, simple. It allows you to have the flexibility to fine-tune a label based on your corporate's needs. Now, once we have created a label, we need to publish this label to a set of users, okay? And what do I mean by publishing labels? So for example, if I go to my email, I can see over here a set of published labels assigned to me. So we will be doing the same. So we go to the label policies. And when labeling policies, I would publish a label. So as you can see here, I can do many published labels. I can have different labels for different departments, because as you know, some departments might need certain sensitivity labels applied that fits their business requirement, and different departments would need their own. So you would go ahead and choose the sensitivity label you want to apply to this specific department or this group of people that you will publish the label for. And over here, I will be choosing the sensitivity label. So just a minute. All right, I can choose all of the labels or just, let's say, specific labels that I need to apply. I can choose the group of users that I need to apply this label to. So you can choose as groups, specific users, or even the entire organization. Let's say I will only include these two users in my case. And then the policy settings. So here you have the chance to maybe impose a certain label by default, or you can choose not to have any label imposed by default. Also, you can require the user to apply a label in their email or document. So if I tick this and I am part of the groups or users you're pushing this policy to, whenever I'm sending an email, it's a must for me to choose a label. So this depends also, again, on your specific requirements. And then I would just name the label so that I'm aware what label this is. And from there, you're done. So really, it's very straightforward to create a label. It's very easy to publish labels to users. You can also in the future do some changes over there. So it's not a one-time thing. Now, also we can apply auto-labeling policy in AIP, and this is also a feature limited and Enterprise E5 plan. So it's part of the AIP plan too. And what the auto-label will do is I will create a label, and this label will fetch all data residing on my OneDrive and SharePoint, containing a match based on the sensitivity info we define. So if you recall in the label we created before, for example, we set credit card number as a sensitivity label. In the auto label, you can choose your own sensitivity information that you're afterwards. And keep in mind, we can have our own defined sensitive information type. So it's not just using a preset data types. You can do your own keywords. You can create your own regex expression, anything. Now, I did say that this is going to take action on the OneDrive and SharePoint, but with the E5, you will benefit also from an Azure Information Protection on-premises scanner. So this will allow you to scan your on-premises file repositories for sensitive content that must be labeled, classified, or protected. All right, so the information protection is not limited here just for the Office application. It extends everywhere. As long as you have the AIP scanner on-prem, we are scanning all of your data and applying the policies accordingly. So let me show you just some examples for the auto label, and this will be nice to see. So I will go to a Word document, and in one of the labels that I have created before this demo, I created a label that will detect whenever I have IBAN numbers in a document. All right. And based on that detection and my label, so this is the label, it will automatically apply some policies. So here I'm just pasting a random set of information. And as you will see, as I'm saving this document, automatically an auto label will take place. All right, so just by the time I saved it, demo 4 IBAN label got applied. And here I can also understand what permissions are granted to me. Okay, because in this label, I set the permissions for people from Expitation organization to have full capabilities. But whenever I'm sharing this document with someone outside of my organization, they will only have the view capabilities, similar to what my colleague sent you. Now, also something interesting in the AIP is that if we have folders, I can just right-click on the folder and classify and protect all of the content in this folder. And what's nice over here is that here I'm not limited just to the predefined labels, but I can also have my own custom permission. So maybe I would want this folder just to be accessible for me, for example. Okay, and I'll apply the policy over there. And as you can see, there's 3 files in this folder, and the policy has been published to all of these 3 files. All right, so let me show you, for example, the Word document, the PDF. So if you notice here to the left, you see this lock, which is basically a security setting from Microsoft. Okay, and here the permission was applied even to a PDF. So it's not limited just to Office applications. Here we're showing, for example, an example on the PDF happening on Adobe. So this is mainly about it when we're talking about Azure Information Protection Plan 2. All right. And now we will jump into Microsoft Cloud App Security. All right. So Microsoft Cloud App Security eliminates the gray zone generated by third-party apps by allowing us to discover and identify shadow IT. All right, so here the dashboard, it gives us a quick insight on how many apps are used across my organization, the number of IPs they are being accessed from, plus details on what users are accessing these apps and how much traffic is being used. Okay, if we scroll down, also we can quickly identify what apps are consuming most traffic and whether these apps are sanctioned or not. All right. Now, if we go to the Discovered Apps tab, here, Microsoft Cloud App Security will allow us to quickly identify the risk level. Okay, so this is the risk level, what you're seeing here, of your apps by assigning this score to every app that is being used across your organization. And the higher the score, the lower the risk level of the app, and the more compliant an application is. So if we click on the score, we can see how the grading is done, okay? So this will allow us to dive deeper into the risks that are involved in each app. For example, here I'm seeing the risks accompanied with this mover app. And one more thing, Microsoft can cover more than 16,000 apps right out of the box, where they have the scoring already done, so you don't have to do anything there. You just benefit from this feature right from the start. So the risk factors, they start from general information about the app, such as where's the app's headquarter, who is the publisher, things as such. And then we can dig deep into their security measures and controls. For example, if they support encryption at rest, do they provide an audit log for user activity? Also, we can see if they are compliant with some of the certifications out there and if they match the legal requirements. Now, something that's really a nice feature for organizations is that you can define the weight of the score for every single risk factor according to your needs. So for some organization, let's say I work in public and health sector, compliance weighs in most for me. So I might want to give it a boost for the scoring, all right? So by doing so, the weight score will be different according to these kind of risk score factors. So now that we've configured the score metrics based on our needs, we now need to know whether or not we want a specific app to be used in our organization, and we might want to investigate how and who is using it. All right, so for example, I'll just use a random application to go through the details. So the usage tab, this allows us to know how many users are using the app and how much traffic is being generated from it. We can even drill down further by clicking on the users tab and filtering to specific people or traffic size. Now we can even have a deeper dive into the data cloud discovery providers. For example, if you want to identify, let's say, the commonly used risky cloud storage and collaboration apps, you can use the Discover apps to filter the apps you want. Then you can also unsanction or block them as follows. So I'll just do an example. So let's say here I want to filter the browsing category to, let's say, cloud storage and collaboration. Okay. So right away, you start to see that filtration is kicking in, and the applications that are showing here, they fit under these two categories. Now I want to do some advanced filtration, all right? I want to, let's say, browse by cloud storage. Okay, so I want to make sure that this app is compliant with the HIPAA and ISO 27001. So I would put that to false. And let's say I want to check the usage. All right, and limit it to specific users with less than or greater, in fact, than 5. All right, now as soon as I set these policies, I'll explain what's going on exactly and how this is of use. I'll put transactions to greater than 10. And the most important feature is the security risk accompanied by this app. Security risk factor. I want to see if this app can do encryption for data at rest. All right. And also let's leverage on the risk score. So this is how you can benefit from the risk score. Okay, risk score will allow you to filter. All right, so what I did here was basically I I went granular into my filtration. I wanted to limit things to related to storing data in the cloud, and I wanted to make sure that I want to have visibility on the applications that does not offer data encryption. So meaning that which applications are putting my data at threat. And also, I wanted to just filter out the applications that are heavily used. So here I'm filtering based on users' usage and based on how much transaction is happening. Since I'm not interested in blocking, let's say, applications that are slightly used. Okay, so after the results are filtered, you can then go ahead and unsanction or even block an application from being used. And after they're unsanctioned, you can use a blocking script to block them from being used in your entire environment. All right. Now, also something else we can do is we can filter by, we can have visibility on the top users to investigate. So I'll show you a different dashboard since the other one is kind of limited. All right. So for example, here it's showing me my top 16 users that are, let's say, showing some suspicious behavior, okay? And these changes are based on their activity in the last 7 days. So clicking on one of these users, we will be able to understand what triggered the risk. All right, so for example, here, what we can see is that this user has been trying to access an application from different locations. So this is called impossible travel because they're 1 minute they're accessing, let's say, a certain application from UAE, the other minute maybe from Russia, and then from the States. Also here I can see from where they're trying to access these applications, and hence I know that someone is trying to do like a brute force attack on these apps, and then I can take actions to avoid having a breach in the future. Now, something very important, which is policies. What policies I can apply to these applications? So you have some predefined policies from Microsoft, which are mainly categorized into 4 vectors: threat detection, information protection, conditional access, and shadow IT. And also, you always have the option to create your own custom-made policy. So let's just have like a view on some of these policies. So for example, I can add a policy which will let me know whenever there's a potential ransomware activity. So here we're putting the filters. So whenever someone on an application is trying to upload or sync a file or rename a file, okay, these are all indicators of ransomware activity. And also if there's a folder that's being executed by any of these types of files, which we know that these are the types of ransomware. So this one, for example, it would encrypt my data, this one, it will lock it, and so on. I need a certain action to be taken, all right? So I can apply it for all of the apps or just for the Office apps, depending on the needs. And I can even suspend the user in case I feel like something suspicious is happening. That way, I would be able to mitigate this risk and avoid having, let's say, my data encrypted that's available on this app. Now, something else, let's take, for example, information protection. In the information protection, for example, I can block someone from sharing data from this app to an unauthorized domain. So this helps us with mitigating the risk of data leakage prevention. So over here, you can choose whatever domain you want to protect or you want to block from. And then based on that, the blocking will happen. And by doing so, you've protected data leakage from happening in your corporate. Now, one last feature before we move to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is how can we create a report? Okay, so this is a nice feature. Why? Because it will easily allow us to generate a cloud report within just a few clicks. And this report will contain everything you see here. So this is good if you want to submit it for someone, let's say from the upper management or your manager or whatsoever. Just within a few clicks, we will have an up-to-date report generated just like that. So for example, this is the report reflecting all of the numbers and everything we've been discussing. So this is about it when it comes to Microsoft Cloud App, Microsoft Defender for Microsoft Defender Cloud Security. Now we will move on to explore the features that you will benefit from with my colleague Emilio. Emilio, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ziad. Hello, everyone. I hope you are all benefiting from this session. I'm a technical support specialist at Expiration. I'm going to cover Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, which is a complete endpoint security solution. Before I start my demo, I would like first to explain what is Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. It's an enterprise endpoint security platform, which is designed to help enterprises to prevent and detect advanced threats. So you may ask, how can Microsoft Defender is able to do so? Defender for Endpoint uses like a combination of technologies which are built inside Windows 10 and inside Microsoft Cloud Services, which are, for example, like behavioral sensors, cloud security analytics, and threat intelligence. Now let me share my screen and again inside the Defender portal. Please just confirm whenever you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it, Emilio.
Okay, perfect. So as you can see here, we have some active alerts. Microsoft Defender continuously collects some behaviors and attackers technique, and it will send directly an alert for a suspicious or malicious activity. Let's check, for example, the following alert. So as you can see here, we have like detailed information about this incident, how it was detected, and when was the first activity, the last activity, and of course, what is the recommended action to take for this suspicious service. So for example, we can open the alert page. So yes. So as you can see here, this following process, we have a very detailed information about this process, like the creation time, the path for this specific process, and how it was filtered. So whenever this suspicious service arrives on this device, you can classify it, because sometimes it might be like a simple alert. It can be a true or false alert. And as you can see here, the details as well. Let's go back. Here are some, for example, some dashboards regarding alerts we had, like the active devices with some alerts. Next, we're gonna see like the device inventory. For example, if you need to check your devices, instead of checking the alert Microsoft provides this device inventory, where you can check the onboarded devices and some important details about them, like their domain, the risk level, the exposure level, the OS platform, the Windows version, the health state, and when was the last time the device was updated. As you can see here, I will go to this device as it's showing a risk level high. It will let me check what are the active alert and incidents for this device, who is the user logged in on this device. So you will ask, how can we prevent this? So as you can see here, Microsoft provides some actions to be taken. You can isolate this device from the network. You can restrict an app execution. If it's an app who is like a threat, you can restrict it from running on this device. You can run antivirus scan. You have like many actions to be taken over here. So the next pillar that we're gonna tackle here is the automation, which is a very interesting feature that comes with the E5 inside the Microsoft Defender security. Let me change the range first. So what is actually the automation? The automation helps security teams to go from the alert, which is showing over here, the triggered alert, to remediation. So you will ask me, how does automation work? So automation mainly have an AI built inside Microsoft Defender that uses some algorithms to be determined whether the threat requires action to be taken or not to perform any remediation action. So let's check out, for example, the following malware that was prevented. So as you can see here, you have an investigation graph, and it will lead you like step by step how this malware was prevented to filter inside the device. It will explain to you the evidence, how the alert was received into the AI, the evidence, which is the malware itself, and what are the entities that were analyzed, all the files, the processes, the services, and which device was it. So as you can see here, the alert itself, the status was resolved. You can filter it also by the device, the evidence, and some entities, which are all the files that were scanned whenever the malware was prevented. It will also show you when was the threat started and when was it ended, and how much time does it take to stop the threat. And now we will check something called the advanced hunting, which is a very advanced feature inside the Defender. Advanced hunting is mainly about running some queries. As you can see here, you have many queries you can run to check any threat or vulnerability on your devices. You have some predefined queries for devices, for the threats. You have also some queries shared with the communities and some suggested one. Whenever you run a query, you will get like a very detailed description about a threat or about a certain device you want to check. You have some, for example, some device info. You can get all the device info, the ID, the name, the public IP, the OS platform. So as you can see here, something related to networks. If a certain event you want to track it, you can also run a query for it. Next, we will tackle the reports. As you can see here, some advanced dashboard regarding some alert. As you can see here, they are all divided. For example, some backdoor alert, some web exploit, Trojans. What's interesting here is that Microsoft is able to differentiate these alerts and show them to you in a very clear way. And also it shows the severity of this alert, like if it's a low severity, if it's a medium one, if it's high, and a status for it, if it was fixed, not fixed, or it was remediated or not. What's even more interesting
Emilio, your voice is
and
cutting.
APIs.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, better now. Thank you.
Okay. So what's even more interesting about Windows Microsoft Defender is that Microsoft know that some customers' environment and structures vary. So you may have a predefined solution for your security. So that's why Microsoft provide APIs to allow some flexibility. So in that way, you can integrate these services with your existing infrastructure. So as you can see here, some third-party application like Splunk, IBM, all of these application can be integrated with this solution. Palo Alto Networks, for example, for threat intelligence, Aruba for network security, and some cross-platform like Bitdefender, Symantec. All the following third-party application can be integrated with Microsoft Defender security. The next step is something called TVM, Threat Vulnerability and Management, which is actually a game changer for Microsoft Defender because it helps the organization to discover threats and remediate the endpoint and all the misconfiguration in real time. So as you can see here, we have the dashboard for the exposure score, and the score for the devices, and how the devices are exposed to threats and how to remediate them, and the remediate activity, for example. Here, as you can see, you have top events, top vulnerable softwares, top exposed device. So let's go, for example, to top vulnerable softwares, which is the Internet Explorer. As you can see here, you will get an overview for this exposed software. You will get something called security recommendation. Like, for example, it will tell you to update the Internet Explorer or to put some plugins. This way, you will prevent any threat to attack this device. Here are some discovered vulnerabilities related to the software. Also, you can, as you can see, it can detect the version of the software and the vulnerability for each version, which is something very advanced. Let's go now, for example, instead of a vulnerable software to a device, for example. As well as for the devices, not only for softwares, it will give you an overview, the exposure, the user logged on this device, the alerts, and the timeline. Like, for example, if a threat was detected and you need to check when was this threat detected, the security recommendation for this device, like as you can see here, to turn on the Microsoft Defender sensor, set some user account control, all of these features will help you to defend this device. It will also give you all the installed softwares on it, everything related to this device, discovered vulnerabilities as well, as you can see here, and to which software was it related, and the severity as well, if it's a critical vulnerability, if it's a high vulnerability, and of course some device summary information like the IP address, the operating system, to which domain, and its network activity when it was first seen and last seen. Next, we will go to something called the Evaluation and Tutorials Lab. So what's actually the Evaluation Lab? As you all know, evaluating the endpoint security solution nowadays is very challenging. However, Microsoft have a solution for that. So by using Microsoft Evaluation Lab, first you will need to add an active device, and then you will run something called a simulation. So let's check this out. As you can see here, we have the following 3 devices that we are tested on using something called simulation. So you may ask what is and how does this simulation work? So the simulation is provided by Microsoft and will give you a tutorial which explains some scenarios. So for example, you can see here we have many scenarios. For example, you can use a scenario using a drop backdoor, or for example, a PowerShell script to run on the device and to simulate it. So you will know if this device is well protected or not. And inside this catalog, you have something interesting, which is automated investigation, which is provided by Microsoft and also by third party like Attack IQ and Safe Breach to run simulation on certain devices provided by Microsoft. And in this way, you will test the device and you will check if this device is really secured or not. So everything is very interesting about Defender. And now you can ask me, for example, but how can we onboard this device? How can this device will be using Microsoft Defender security?
Yes, Emilio, before going to the onboarding, so for the simulation, there is a very added value you will get it here, like no need to bring a third-party company to do like a test for you. So you can test your policies by yourself. You can test if you have any type of file, any vulnerability, Microsoft will give you a virtual machine for free. So you can test everything, your policies, everything on this virtual machine, and you will be able to specify if there is any backdoor using like the predefined simulation gallery. If you can go to the galleries here, go to simulation gallery in the blue. Or you can using that, it's the same. You can use like the predefined simulation catalog and the rule, and you can apply the same rules and test it before you go inside your environment and inside your network. So this is just a point. Yes, I mean, you go ahead.
Thank you, Vince. So as Vince said regarding the labs and how Microsoft provide this interesting solution, how does devices will be onboarded to use the Microsoft Defender security? We will check this out now. So as you can see here, we have something called device management. You can onboard and offboard a device. which is what something is very interesting regarding the Microsoft Defender is it covers all the platform and the OSs. As you can see here, it doesn't only work for Windows 10, but for Windows Server as well, for Mac OS, for iOS, and even for Android. So this is a huge step for Microsoft. So as you can see here, first you will onboard the device. You have many deployment methods to use. You can use, for example, a local script to onboard Windows devices. You can use it for up to 10 devices. You can onboard it using a group policy. You can also onboard it using Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager. You can use the SCCM, the System Center Configuration Manager. You can use the MDM, Microsoft Intune, or you can use something called the VDI onboarding script for non-persistent devices. If the device is not listed inside the following operating system, you can use that. So you will download a package. Once the package is installed on the device, you will run it. And to make sure if the device is onboarded or not, you will run something called a detection test. So Microsoft will provide you, as you can see here, a PowerShell command. You will run it on your device, and it will let you know if the device is onboarded or not yet. Once the device is onboarded, you can check it inside the configuration management. As you can see here, we have 21 onboarded devices. You can onboard more devices over here. As you can see here, these are some settings you need to check before onboarding the device. You will go to something called MDM compliance policy settings inside the Microsoft Endpoint Manager. You can turn on the settings for the connected Android devices, for the iOS devices, for Windows devices. Once the settings is turned on, you can check all the devices that are onboarded. And once this device is onboarded, you can configure something called the baseline, the endpoint baseline, which are some predefined settings to secure the device from Microsoft. We will get to those now. So as you can see here, we have something called the security baseline. These are some predefined security settings for the Windows 10, something for the Microsoft Defender and for Edge. Here you will create a profile for this onboarded device. As you can see here, you will select the settings to protect the device. You have a very nice, interesting features. You have the BitLocker. You can manage the BitLocker from here. You can put some settings on the browser, as well on the connectivity to block, for example, the hotspot or Bluetooth. You can protect some data, like block the direct memory access on it. And all the following settings that you can use to protect the device whenever it's onboarded.
And Emilio, we need different profile for each user, or we can apply one profile to several users.
You can apply a single profile for several users, or you can create for each user a certain profile.
Okay.
So as you can see here, we also have a predefined baseline. Here are also some settings related to attack surface reduction. You can block, for example, the Office application from getting into a third-party application, you can enable the protection, network protection, for example. Whenever you are done with the security baselines, you will go to something like the following application, which are related to the endpoint security, the antivirus, the disk encryption, the firewall, the EDR, the attack surface reduction. Here you can manage advanced settings. So as you can see here, those are predefined ones from Microsoft, but the following settings are even more advanced than the following ones inside the baseline. So for example, if we go to disk encryption, which is related to BitLocker, you will select, of course, the platform. You will select the profile, which is BitLocker. So as you can see here, all the settings are related only for BitLocker. That's why they are very advanced. So here you will select in details what do you want to do using the BitLocker. You want to encrypt the disk and the operating system. You want to lock the fixed drive. You want to block the OS drive, not the whole system. You can also block the removable devices, for example, a USB, a hard disk, an external hard disk. We can go, for example, into the EDR, which is also, as you can see here, we have a test profile. A device here is onboarded. So we can check what properties are applied on this device. So the EDR, the simple sharing, is turned on, for example. We can check the attack surface reduction as well. You can select the platform. Here you can see we have the following profiles. For example, we will get to device control. Here are some also advanced settings you can use. You can block the memory access. You can directly scan a device whenever it's plugged in inside the laptop, for example. You can block a USB connection. You can even block everything related to Bluetooth, as you can see here. And of course, you can allow some certain devices. Let's now check a device that is enrolled inside the endpoint manager. So as you can see, this device is enrolled with Microsoft Endpoint. Here we can check the settings applied on this device and all the policies. As you can see here, it is enrolled using Intune. So as you can see here, all the settings that we were talking about are applied on this device. The BitLocker and the Internet Explorer and the Bluetooth, for example, everything related to browser. So all the policies are applied on this device.
I think this device cannot breathe.
So as you can see here, the mobile hotspot is turned off. The user cannot use any connection to it. As you can see here, the Bluetooth, it mainly shows over here, but it is blocked as well. So the user cannot use any devices on it. He can't turn it on, as you can see here. It has also the USB that also is prevented from using it. As you can see here, it is a plugged-in USB, and the user cannot even access it. All the settings are applied through the endpoint security. So as you can see here, this is all the devices. And of course, you have a way to offboard the devices. You will select like which platform. As we talked earlier, you can use a script to offboard the device or the MDM in case you want to offboard a certain device. If you have like any questions regarding the Defender security.
As I mentioned before, if you were not invited to this event and you'd like to receive the email, the recording, please make sure to type in your email in the chat so I can send it to you. Thanks again.